Dave Pagnotta from the fourth period joins us as he does every week on the show. And we kick things off by talking about a handful of teams who are off to hot starts this season. But the one we didn't touch on was the Montreal Canadiens. They got assets, they got cap space. Dave, are the Habs one of the teams that could be, itching to make a big splash here sooner rather than later?
Ty, I think they're going to be a team that's going to be looking. They're going to be lurking. They're going to be making sure, like they usually do. And Kent Hughes is great at this. He wants to know what's out there. He wants to know who's available. He's collecting all of his information. And if they make another big splash, and they made a big one in the summer, they picked up Noah Dobson from the New York Islanders. Something along those lines would not shock me for the Montreal Canadiens to be engaged in that level of conversation. As you said, a lot of cap space. For this group, they've got a lot of good young assets, plus still a pretty solid cupboard with respect to draft picks. We'll see kind of, what opportunities present themselves. But, we've touched on this in previous weeks of teams like Carolina and Utah and Ottawa being teams willing to go big game hunting. I think the Montreal Canadiens are also in that boat. They're not afraid to engage in those types of conversations. And whether it's a centerman, which seems to be the primary with respect to the 2C role, Nick Suzuki's locked in, obviously, at the top line. But if they can pull in, be it a 2C or another top six caliber, likely for the second line scoring winger, I wouldn't be surprised if they go in that direction. So we'll see kind of where they go, but 0% surprise if the Montreal Canadiens engage in big discussions later on this season, because again, they have the financial flexibility, they've got the cupboard to move out some assets, and a willingness to continue to add to this group, not just for this season, but for years to come.
Well, you know what, Dave, honestly, I think the beauty of this team is, too, if you add something, it doesn't really disrupt everything, right? There's so many contracts in place where it seems sustainable. And now on the other end of it, when I look at Nashville, a team that's just been, we look back at free agency a few years ago, it's been unbelievable, right? It was that free agency. Ty and I talked about this the other day, like, hey, wow, they won free agency because they're the best team on paper. Then come to see it, we see Ryan O'Reilly last night talking about we can't make a 6-foot pass. It's tough to see, what is the plan there in Nashville? Is there guys and some veterans that start getting moved out?
They're obviously trying to figure it out to see exactly what the direction of this team is. It's still early. They don't want to press any panic buttons. But yeah, teams are starting to circle a little bit and are curious to see, can they get into the Ryan O'Reilly sweepstakes, which I anticipate to happen later on in the season. He's got another year on his contract. He doesn't have any no-trade protection, but unofficially he does. They're going to bring him an opportunity that is favorable for him. At the same time, they've got to maximize their return. But they have some other pieces. And look, I'm with you guys. I thought they brought in Marchessault, they brought in Stamkos, they brought in Brady Shea on that back end. I thought they'd be able to, make some noise and be part of the consistent playoff discussion. Obviously, just hasn't worked. And depending how this season goes, if it continues to go in this direction and they continue to follow this trend, I think there are going to be a number of questions. One, what are they going to do behind the bench with Andrew Brunette? Two, is it Ryan O'Reilly? We've obviously heard the Stamkos discussion already. And with respect to Stammer, I don't think anything is imminent. I don't think anything is close there. And I've mentioned this a few times this week, but I think there's a willingness to explore from his side. And yes, he likes it there. His family likes it there. Everybody likes it there. But I think there's a willingness to explore the possibility of joining a top-tier contender for the duration of his term of his contract. He's got 2 years after this one. But then it's finding the options. Then it's figuring out how much Nashville wants to eat on that contract, because no one's taking him at full pop at $8 million cap hit. So that's another variable in place. You see Saros. Would they be dangerous enough to explore that possibility between the pipes? Probably more of an off-season type of situation with respect to that, if they pursue that seriously. But I think right now for Nashville, it's let's see if we can get through this next month. If we can get through November and make a little bit of an incline, then all right, let's wait this out even further. If not, if it's kind of status quo, then I think those conversations across the board start to pick up. Doesn't mean necessarily we'll start to see fireworks in end of November and beginning of December, but it does start to get the ball rolling even faster with respect to potential moves later in the season out of Nashville.
The Stamkos thing is interesting and something that complicates this. Jeff Merrick brought it up earlier in the week with us, but like the new owner there as well. Like I guess it's hard to know what he's thinking as a relatively new owner. There's no track record to go back on, but like, can Barry Trotz go to him and be like, hey, I know you just cut a massive check for Steven Stamkos. Can we pay him $4 million to not play for us the next 2 years? We just signed UC Saros to a long-term deal. Are you cool if I just take that money and instantly ship it out? Like, who knows how that owner would feel if Barry Trotz comes asking these kind of questions?
I think, obviously everybody wants to win, and that includes ownership. They want to be in a position where they're going to, have their team succeed. But if it's not working, and this team is not deep enough, so if it's not working, how do you fix it? Do you have to go through a rebuild? Can you go through a retool of sorts? I guess it really depends on the type of return you're going to get for some of these assets. But, it's at the same time, you also have to kind of just man up and be like, look, it didn't work. We've made mistakes. We thought these were the right moves. It just hasn't connected for whatever the reason. And we need to kind of clean this up before it gets really, really ugly. So there are some internal debates and internal questions that some of these individuals have to ask themselves. But, sometimes you kind of got to just bite down and accept the fate and try to fix it and try to move forward by doing other right decisions in order to clean up whatever mess has been made, even if it's inadvertent.
Sorry, yeah, that's always the point, right? Teams are trying to do their best, right? What you forecast and what happens out, it doesn't always work that way, right? And again, now I want to switch over to Toronto. The David Kampf situation is a very interesting one. I'm a guy, I played with Patrick Berglund. He walked away from $12.5 million. So this is not unique to me, but just a unique case for the Leafs here. What happened? How much do you know about the story about him and his contract being terminated?
Well, it sounds like an option with respect to what they're going to do here. Now, Toronto's been trying to move Kampf since the summer. It was Kampf, it was Yarncroc, it was Nick Robertson, the usual suspects that even go back to last season. But Treliving has been looking around for a while. The issue that I've gotten, and the sense that I've gotten, that is the issue, is that he hasn't really wanted to just give these guys away, right? Like, he hasn't just wanted to be like, here, I'll just take a 7th round pick and let's call it a day. He's wanted some decent type of asset coming back for whatever the reason. Now, I think in this situation, because it's gotten this ugly, maybe that's the route they take. They can trade him for whatever, get a 6th round pick or something like that and call it. But talking to other teams around the league over the last several months, yeah, they know they're available, but Toronto has had a decent price in mind in order to move out some of these pieces. And teams obviously haven't been willing to pay, and that's why they're still there. Now, because things have gotten to this point with Kampf, and it's not like, they just have too many people. Like, there's way too many guys in that bottom 6, and they've needed to move guys out. Like, they didn't want to necessarily send Easton Cowan down to the AHL, but he doesn't have to clear waivers. It's an easy, kind of move for them financially. So I think with the Leafs, they're going to continue to see what's going on here. But it seems like, if we don't get a resolution today or by the end of the weekend, that they'll just rip it up and say, all right, it hasn't worked. We'll save the money. Go out there and find a new deal somewhere else.
Interesting. One more team I want to touch on. It's the team we led our show with in the Anaheim Ducks. Similar situation to Montreal, you think, where Pat Verbeek would like to maybe do something big? Or do you think they're looking at this year and being like, hey, however it goes, like gravy. Like, if we make the playoffs, awesome, ahead of schedule. Or do they want to get aggressive?
Situationally aggressive. I think this is kind of like Montreal was, say last year, where they made some headway. They stayed, on top of what the options are going to be, and then pounce in the summer, which has been really Montreal's MO for the last few years. All of their major deals, for the most part, Dobson, Doc, Newhook, Line, those have been in the offseason. So I think for Anaheim, they really obviously like what's going on there. With the group that they've got, with Q behind the bench, Leo Carlson has been fantastic. Cutter Gauthier has been great. A lot of their younger guys are really producing. And by the way, those two guys need contracts, so that'll eat a big chunk of their cap moving forward. But they still have so much more cap space and flexibility that they can add. So I think this is going to be another scenario where not necessarily lurking in the weeds, but lurking in the shadows. It would be how I would describe the Ducks and Pat Verbeek. If something kind of pops up and it's advantageous for them to take advantage of now, I think they'd explore that in terms of bringing in a big fish. Otherwise, they'll continue to kind of just take their notes, keep tabs on things, and then maybe pounce in the summer. But again, if the opportunity arises for them to make an impact addition, and I think that's where they're at right now, this is another team with assets, both from a prospect side of things and draft capital, that they can move in order to bring in that big trophy kind of player to take advantage of. Obviously, to a certain extent, they've done that with Kreider and Trouba over the last couple of years. But they're looking higher, they're looking top tier, and if one of those pieces become available, they'll at least be part of the discussion. From everything I've been reading. Just
go get another Ranger. Go get Panarin. I see someone put that in our YouTube chat. There you go. Easy. Throw another high-end winger into the mix.
Yeah, and he said yesterday he doesn't know what the future still holds for him, but he's just pissed off that his game is kind of off right now. So he wants to focus on that. But I mean, maybe look, they'll have the money. They'll have the money to do it. Panarin's looking for midterm, by the sounds of things, 4, 5, 6 years, which at 34, a little aggressive, but. We'll see kind of where things end up with him in New York. That's another situation where they're in wait and see mode before they start to make any potential big moves, be it to add or to subtract / retool.
Yeah, like no one's doing anything crazy. I mean, in all likelihood before the new year, but especially before American Thanksgiving, that kind of artificial cutoff line we view it as is like, okay, you kind of know what you are by the end of November, and you probably act on it January, February, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that over the years has been a combination of let's see exactly what we have, and we're willing to wait it out because we don't have the cap space to act anytime sooner. A lot of teams do now, and a lot of teams will next season. So I think and this is why there's a lot of chatter right now, because I think there's more of a willingness to act sooner than later, even with respect to that cutoff. But if you hit the dozen-game mark and you don't know what you've got already, might be a little internal problem there. I think teams understand what they've got, within that 10, 12, 15 game mark. Obviously, U.S. Thanksgiving provides that extra cushion, but I think because of that cap flexibility that a lot of teams have now, they don't necessarily have to wait. But, it's a lot easier to start making moves when you're approaching deadlines, which is why we see so much activity once January hits.
Yeah. All right. We kept you long, but appreciate your time, Dave.
Thanks, Dave. You got it, boys. See ya.
Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.